And we're back. It's Thursday, and it's time for Throwback Thursday. Since Batman vs. Superman is coming out this week, we decided to do a throwback of Man of Steel. I'm joined by my friend Navin.
Yo.
We literally just finished watching Man of Steel. It's been a while since we watched it.
And it was crap the second time, guys.
Yeah, well, I've seen it a few times simply because the action, I think, is really, really good. However...
I wouldn't say really good. I mean, it's good.
It's good. Well, I thought it was good. I was more than pleased with it. I am, sad to say, a somewhat of a Zack Snyder fan because of visually and technically he's a very good director. However, somebody's got to keep a leash on him.
But he's not a visually good director. He stole everything from 300 literally from the comic book.
Well,
like, every visual was from the freaking
right,
comic
but
book.
it's kind of hard to have... Well, not hard, but it's kind of a leap to put that into motion because you have your storybook, which is essentially the comic book, and then bringing that and connecting that into all the emotions and this and the other. Obviously, there's some technical sense that has to be done and to be done right because there were... other comic book movies before that just went to shit. But to make a good comic book movie, I think he did a good job with 300.
I guess. I'm not a big Zack Snyder fan at all, so...
Yeah, so, alright. Moving past that. Man of Steel.
Which was co-written by Christopher Nolan, by the way.
Yeah, which was a complete and utter surprise based on the massive plot holes. And David S. Goyer, if I remember correctly, didn't he help... I know he wrote Blade, all of the Blades. The last two were garbage. Well, actually, the second one was pretty decent. The third one was garbage. But so David S. Goyer and Christopher Nolan, basically the writing team behind all the Batman the recent Batman movies. So it's not like they don't do a good job with story. It's just I don't know what happened with this movie. I would have to say Zack Snyder had a lot of input in the story.
But you're hoping for the freaking best. But does Christopher Nolan seem like the kind of guy to you that would let someone else dictate how he writes something?
I doubt it. I think he just put his name just for the...
Or maybe he just got so pissed off like after writing this movie and then other people messing with it that he decided to go into directing?
No, I think they just put his name down just for street cred. Is what it is. Because there was no... you can't sense that this is a Christopher Nolan movie.
This movie has... Well, you can, because no offense to Christopher Nolan, but he has other movies with some decently sized plot holes. But this movie was like...
Yeah, like the
Swiss cheese of fucking plot holes. Yeah,
no.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there was... Where should we start? First of all...
Everything in this movie, like... The movie itself, like, it doesn't really make much sense, even if you're, like, suspending some of the Superman ethos from life, but it just doesn't make sense, like, how it's laid out. There are, like, flashbacks at the wrong times
right.
or for no reason at all.
No, not only flashbacks, but redundant flashbacks. Let's just start off from the get-go. From the very beginning, you have... freaking Krypton, which I like the fact that they did Krypton differently, but there's some things that they threw in there for no apparent reason.
Like the dragonfly.
The dragon. It's like... Cool story, bro. Needs more dragons. So let's just add a freaking dragon. Everybody's flying around in spaceships.
Why wouldn't you want to see Maximus on a goddamn dragon? Come on now.
Russell Crowe. Yeah, Maximus on a dragon. That's exactly what we got in Krypton.
That's a great movie in itself, actually.
Yeah. They should have just made that movie.
I want to see that.
Yeah, Maximus on a dragon. So then you have this thing called the Codex, which apparently Kryptonians aren't born. They're grown like the Matrix. They also... spawn basically from this skull looking thing that has everybody's DNA imprinted on it, so everybody's related. I guess. So,
but like the weird thing is that apparently showing Superman's an alien on a different planet with superpowers. In order to make him feel more special, they had to make him the first natural childbirth in Krypton, and like what is the point of that?
Yeah, I don't know. They could have done with a lot of stuff. And then you have Zod, which is, I was kind of excited to find out when this movie came out that Zod was going to be the bad guy. Because I'm a big fan of the old one, the Superman 2. And I like the way they handle Zod to a certain extent in this movie. But when they sent everybody on the Phantom Zone... why did they have to be encased in giant stone penises? It's him and his crew. It was at least 7 or 8 penises.
There was a bunch of penises.
Yeah, so they encased in this like...
Or little sperm.
No. These were full-on dildo shaped objects.
How did no one like thought or saw it beforehand?
Yeah, like we were talking about it while watching a movie. First of all, the movie has to be storyboarded. The movie has to be like at some point somebody draws this big fucking cock.
Right, there's concept art.
There's concept art. Then there's somebody who has to do previs on this, and then you have to do the full like texturing, and then you have to go through editing, and then you have to go with like at some point Zack Snyder has to sit there and approve 8 flying penises into this. So I don't. That's where I'm kind of trying to see if somebody phoned it in at some point. But at some point, there were 8 flying penises.
Plus, but I don't understand also, like, I always thought the Phantom Zone was like a planet or like a dimension. But then they like send them in a... They shoot them up in the penises into a ship. And then they send the ship into the Phantom Zone. If that's what it was supposed to be, and like they're supposed to be stuck in the Phantom Zone, and their whole thing is like they retrofitted an engine from something else, like why would they put an engine in the spaceship?
Exactly right. And the other thing is, all right, so then Krypton explodes, that whole stuff, and I like that they kept that short and brief. I think that whole entire Krypton thing was maybe 7 minutes, 10 minutes?
No, it was longer than that.
Was it really?
Yeah, the whole Krypton park was like at least 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, how long was this movie?
2.5 hours.
Okay.
It was a long movie.
Was it?
Unnecessarily so.
Yeah, I think I got more hung up on the parts, though, the backstory, which I think they try to keep brief in the sense that they handled it in flashbacks. And which was cool because how many times can you retell the origin of Superman? I guess I'm okay with them spending more time in Krypton to some extent. Then the whole flashback nonsense didn't make any sense. It was all disjointed. Superman, for the lack of a better word, was a hobo.
You really like, and that's the other thing too. Like Superman is like. He's like a hobo throughout like the beginning of the movie and like
the beginning
like
of his adulthood. He's a hobo.
And like Lois Lane like digs into like urban legends where he's never using a real name. He's never like he doesn't have like they don't do background checks on him beforehand, and they give him all these jobs, and he gets all these jobs.
Yeah, and these aren't like very complex jobs. These are like he is a fisherman. Like an assistant fisherman on like this boat or different things like that,
and she still tracks him down.
Yeah, like, and they weren't like close by to each other. It wasn't like he would just hang around Kansas being a fisherman. I guess you can't be a fisherman in Kansas, but he goes from being working on a fishing ship or
the fishing boats,
and like I would assume in the Gulf of Mexico or something because they had like the oil rigs and shit. So it could be anywhere. And then to the freaking North Pole, he's being like
he's like Lois Lane's camera holder.
He was a handyman. Guy. He was just a handyman that got assigned to.
And then he worked in the diner.
Yeah. So then like these places are like in Seattle or some shit. I don't know where these places were. I don't know. Essentially, there is no connection between point A to point B. I mean, like the FBI couldn't track this guy the way that Lois Lane. But
Lois Lane and he tracks him down to like his house, and then she goes up to his mom, and like his mom Martha Kent just like dimes out Superman. Yeah, and be like, yes, okay, his father died, and like tells her everything. Yeah, and then Superman comes up later on and be like, yo, so a reporter stopped by. Yeah, and then he's like, oh, don't worry, he's cool. After she's like told the entire story to the woman, he's like, oh, hey, oops.
By the way,
it's cool.
Yeah. By the way, we're Biffles now.
Like,
yeah. So, and when you pointed out, like towards the end of the movie, she gets brought to after this like whole disaster is going on, and she gets brought to the farm. Lois gets brought to the farm in a cop car, and she runs out of the cop car. Clark.
Superman is like there talking to Martha Kent. And, like, the cops, like, legitimately, like, bring the car up to the house. And, like, she runs out, Clark, I know how to beat him.
Yeah, what? Like... way to keep it on the DL there, Chloe.
Like, everyone in this universe knows that Clark Kent is super... Like, the general, at the very, very end...
Yeah.
And Superman's like, well, I'm from Kansas, General. Like, what?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no point in... Yeah.
What is the superhero identity?
There is no secret identity. Why even bother with the glasses at that point, in all honesty?
It's true.
Because, alright, so then the report, the whole story that she's investigating, it's not like she keeps it to herself or whatever. She gets it published
on the internet.
And she posts it on the internet. I mean, it gets so much attention that like the newspaper's threatening to sue her and this, that, and the other, and it's not like it's a secret that he's...
And she literally details in the article, like, he worked here and he did this and he did this and he did, and like she tells like the entire story. Like, couldn't any other random schmo figure it out from there?
The whole point with the glasses is just null and void at that point. And
plus, I think my favorite part of the movie is where like they create, where Superman, who's an alien that grew up on planet Earth, and an army general or whatever he was, like the guy, come up with a plan to shoot, and Lois Lane, a reporter, come up with a plan to shoot the spaceship that he came over with as a baby into the terraforming thingy.
No, that was the actual ship. The terraforming thing was blown up.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. So that's another issue that I have. We'll get to that one in a minute.
Shooting the ship that he came over in as a baby into Zod's ship that would create a black hole because a reporter, an army general,
and a
hobo from Smallville, Kansas, know how to create a black hole.
They're all, not only that, but they're all astrophysicists apparently, and they can figure out that a black hole is not going to go out of control. I think that's why they pulled it off, because they didn't know what the hell they were doing, because an astrophysicist would say, hold on, pump the brakes right here. You want to do what now?
And they knew like the black hole would create a black hole, and don't worry, it'll close in on itself after the ship like gets sucked in and all the rest of his guys.
And then you have this whole brigade of people in Zod's ship
who all are from Krypton, who all have superpowers.
And you would assume that all have superpowers. So you would assume that at least, even if it's 10 guys with him, which I think it might have been more, but because it's a big ship and you have to run this fucker. So then you have at least minimum of 10 guys
plus all the penises.
Or let's just keep it down. You have 8 flying penises, right? So you have essentially 8 superpowered people, and you only see 3 of them fight. I mean, at one point Zod gets injured, or he gets like disoriented or whatever, and he gets rescued by at least 3 other guys.
And Fiora too.
And Fiora gets rescued at a different point by 2 other guys. And then, and that meant, not to mention, none of them are the same guys that you see on screen at a different point of the movie. You have the scientist guy, who's also a Kryptonian, which you would imagine has superpowers also.
But wait. Let's talk about superpowers for a minute, shall we? Explain to me how Superman has superpowers.
Okay,
and why Zod and them do in this movie.
Alright, in the comic books, you have Superman gets his power from the yellow sun. And in Krypton, they have a red sun. That's how they supposedly cancel out they explain the powers. You don't have powers on Krypton because of the red sun, and you do have powers on Earth because of the yellow sun. Now, according to this movie, it has nothing to do. They mention the yellow sun, but then everything
They
contradict themselves in the sense that everything gets null and void as soon as you breathe Kryptonian air. We'll follow through on that. You breathe in the Kryptonian air, and then you stop having superpowers. So then everybody's, on an even playing field on the Kryptonian ship, right? So then what is Zod's grand plan is to turn Earth into Krypton. So essentially you breathe Kryptonian air, so therefore you no longer have powers?
Right. He's turning Earth into Krypton so that they don't have superpowers, because why would you want to have superpowers? It's stupid, right?
And not even just like lame superpowers. These are like world-ending superpowers.
But the other thing too is then Zod, he says it'll take 3 to 4 years for them to get used to the atmosphere in the movie, and then except for Zod, who in the movie
3 to 4
20 minutes later has he's in full control of his superpowers, and he breaks out of his suit, and he's flying, and he's got stuff rotating around him, and he's this. He was literally bred to be a warrior, genetically modified to be a warrior, because remember on Krypton everyone was genetically made. So he was genetically made to be a warrior, has all of Superman's powers, and Clark Kent, who'd never been in a goddamn fight before because he's afraid he'd kill everyone, beats him.
Exactly. So
not only beats him, kills him.
He like you would think there'd be some Kryptonian judo that fucking Zod would know, and like fucking I mean, they even show it. Fiora, the chick, she like whoops Superman's ass.
And says you're a punk.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, exactly. So she whoops his ass. Like, not even using superpowers. I'm talking about like full on judo and
like some whatever Kryptonian kung fu.
Yeah, exactly right. So then there's so many plot holes in this movie that
it's seriously ridiculous.
It's
like I said, this was the second time I watched it just because the first time it was so long and boring. There were bits of cool things in it, but it was just like so like boring.
Yeah, well, I mean, when the movie picks up, it really picks up, and there's a lot of like action and like a lot of over the top stuff. But I like the fact that this is the first time you actually see Superman be Superman, and the big like over the top fight scenes that you see in like comic books. And this is like I like that they finally got away from the whole Christopher Reeves thing.
I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah.
Lois Lane was a goddamn superhero in this movie.
Yes.
She could teleport because she was literally everywhere in this movie. Like, Zod and Superman are having a fight through like 40 buildings for like 10 minutes in the air.
Yeah.
And Lois shows up right as like Superman snaps his neck.
Not once, but like at least 3 times. In the crater when he first comes down. And how far is Kansas from Metropolis?
Right. And this
she was literally in Kansas like
it's
3 hours.
It's supposed to be close by though, technically. But yeah, she like teleports there with the police.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was I know how to beat them.
Yeah.
And when they created a black hole. Everything else is being sucked into the black hole except for Lois Lane,
including Superman, who catches her, and he's fighting the gravity that's being from the black hole, and she should have been wearing the cape.
It's true. And the very beginning of the movie is the foreshadowing to Lois Lane's superpowerdom is like that robot thing that's supposed to protect the spaceship when Clark first finds the spaceship.
Yeah.
Right? And it whips Superman with its tentacle. And like he gets his arm cut.
Yeah.
She whips Lois Lane in the stomach, flies her across.
You would think it would like slice her in half.
It sliced a bit of her open, and Superman just cauterized the wound, and she was cool. Like like the day after, she's like back in action.
Yeah.
Like Lois Lane had superpowers in this movie. I don't care what you say. She was the first Wonder Woman, not Gal Gadot, who's going to be in this next movie, who also was not the first Wonder Woman. But in terms of this series, she is.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, my last, I was annoyed by this gripe, and I want to know how they're going to address it in Batman versus Superman, is at the end of the movie, Clark Kent gets a job at the Daily Planet. He had no work experience because technically
he was a hobo.
He was not just a hobo, but those hobos weren't even him. So he can't list the hobo experience of all of those jobs. Yeah, he literally had no job, and then all of a sudden at the end of the movie, he's a reporter with the Daily Planet, which is supposed to be the biggest newspaper in the world. Not only does he have a job there, but you don't know how long after the movie that scene is supposed to be, because time would be the only thing to explain why he got the job.
All right, so that is pretty much it for Superman or Man of Steel. Thanks everybody for watching. Please like and subscribe, and on that note, we're out of here.